Welcome to Becoming is Messy, where we dive deep into the journey of survival, transformation, and everything in between. I'm your host, Meghann Dawson, here to share the honest, unfiltered stories behind my own process of becoming. Life isn't a pretty and perfect straight line, and neither is becoming the person we're meant to be. Here, we embrace the ups, the downs, and all the beautiful, chaotic, messy moments that shape who we are. Whether you're in the thick of change or reflecting on past transformations, this space is for real conversations about what it means to grow, stumble, and rise again. So get comfy, settle in, and let's get messy. Hello, fellow and future messies. Today's guest is bringing the perfect combo of cheeky, healing, and empowerment, and we're about to talk about confidence, clits, and coming home to your body. Cheyenne Robinson is a trauma-informed sexual health educator, pure romance partner, and the founder of the Bitchin Babes community, a soft but spicy space helping women build unfiltered confidence and feel worthy of pleasure. From purity culture to body curiosity, Cheyenne is here to help us lovingly unlearn shame and redefine sensuality on our own terms. Cheyenne, welcome to Becoming is Messy. It's so great to meet you.
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm so excited to dive in and talk about confidence and clits today.
Yay, this is going to be fun. I'm so excited to dive in. And just to kind of tee us up, get us started, let's start with what's going on in your life in this moment. How would you describe maybe this season of your life?
Oh my goodness. This has been such an interesting season for me. So I was laid off of my job of 10 years in November. And then the last several months, I've been trying to get back into the workforce. And then I'm also doing my sexual health education and confidence content in the midst of all of this. But it's been an interesting season for me and like helping others build their confidence while I really had like an ego hit and losing my job in November. So I would say like it's definitely an interesting season. It's definitely a messy season for me. I'm really coming out of it and restarting a new role soon and still doing my sexual health education online. But yeah, it's definitely been messy.
Yeah, Becoming is Messy. The whole concept of our show is really leveraging those messy moments and turning them into abundance. You know, there's just such a space for growth and opportunity in those moments. So I am just so excited to hear that you're on your way out of that space and excited to see what all comes for you as you emerge from that and start really building what's next. So now let's go backwards a little bit. Every becoming story has its own messy path, which you've just alluded to even right now. What about your past? What are some of those twists and turns that have led you to this moment today?
Yeah, goodness. How do I share this without trauma dumping on you all?
Thinking that young girl from small town Texas, to think of that person becoming a sensuality educator, confidence coach. I mean, that's a long journey. What are just some of the steps you want to highlight there? And feel free to trauma dump. This is an honest, authentic space, so give it to me.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll try to do it in a way that's, feels safe for everyone. But, I might touch on some sensitive topics. So this is kind of that little bit of a warning there. If you feel uncomfortable at any time, do what you need to do. Pause, go take care of yourself. And we're here whenever you need us. My story started in small town Texas, population less than 3,000, graduated 120 kids from my high school. And I grew up in the same town from pre-K or birth really all the way through to high school and had like many schools and many towns, not even in small town, but just generally, I think a lot of people can relate to not having a sexual health education. I was part of that. I was victim to the American Girl book. Basically, it talked about taking care of my body and that was kind of it. That was all I got. It was like, hey, your body's going to change, you're going to bleed, but don't have sex.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was pretty much it. And so when I actually got my first, I'm a late bloomer, I have to say. So I didn't have my first menstrual cycle until I was 14. And I didn't even know how to use a tampon. I was 14 years old trying to put a tampon on my clitoris, completely clueless. And so now it's crazy to think that I'm a sexual health educator. but really not having an education and then also having my own sexual trauma led to being extremely sexually active in my 20s, but a lot of risky behaviors as well, and even sex work for a period of time. So I was doing all of that in college, and I really didn't think through much of anything. I think, like a lot of us do in our 20s, and not saying there's anything wrong with sex work, but it just was not for me. Even though I'm a sexual health educator, it just wasn't for me. And so I think I just found growing up in purity culture and being someone who doesn't know how many partners I've had really hit home. And I had a lot of shame that I've carried over the years from that and being like, oh, there's something wrong with me. In college, I was really great about getting tested regularly, which pat on the back for me for doing that. Sure, you should always get tested at least annually. But if anytime you change partners or your partner, you should go regularly. I was going like every month then. But the OBGYN at the university came in, and at that time, I really hope they don't do this anymore, but you had to put your number of partners, and she saw the increase, and she came in and said, what is your future husband going to think about this?
Oh, wow.
I'm just bawling my eyes out, like, so sad. Did that change anything for me? No, it just made me feel really bad about myself.
Of course.
Yeah, and so instead of, being like, I'm glad that you're getting tested regularly and asking, like, are you okay? Like, is this consensual? Like, you should have asked questions just to make sure I'm safe instead. But anyway, so they shamed me, and not only did I get shame from them, but I also had that shame from purity culture and not having the education I needed. And learning too that my body was for other people and not for myself, and it was only for men. And like, it really just told me that I didn't matter and that like my body didn't matter. And so, yeah, I just had a lot of it shame I carried. And I think the last several years, well, since I've been in Texas forever, but I've been in Dallas Fort Worth for the last 10 years, working a corporate job. I mentioned I got laid off, but I'm about to be starting a new role. But in the time I was here, I started at one point volunteering with a nonprofit for gay and bisexual cis men. And in that community, I really was starting to feel like more comfortable being myself. I always felt like I had like this part of myself that had to hide and couldn't share. I'm someone who doesn't like to have secrets. I like to just be open who I am and not feel like I have to hide a part of myself. The sex work was really hard for me because I felt like I was living two different lives. But then coming out of that, I also kind of another area of, oh, I can't tell my friends that I have this part of me because they're going to judge me. So like now, where it's really in the last year, I've started to be more openly talking about this. But ADHD, back to what I was saying.
No, this is all, I feel like it's all connected. So thank you.
Yeah, it is. What I was saying about the volunteering with that nonprofit, I really started to feel like, oh, like, because it was a sex positive thing, we would throw these fun parties and basically just encourage people to know their status, get tested, and take care of themselves. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, I really felt like safe with them and like I could share about myself. And they're like, okay, like, that's great. Like, you do you. And like, that's cool that like you have this history and like experience or whatever. And so, yeah, in there, I really wish there's a space like this for women where we can just like own our sexuality and feel comfortable like asking questions and not have to feel like it's something dirty or something to be ashamed of, because it's not. And so that's why like I started this community. Well, actually, I keep saying 3 years, but it's actually been 4 years now. And because of that experience, I really wanted to have that same experience for women and for that past burden of myself, and that others have been in that place where they're like, oh, they feel bad that they've done X, Y, Z. And it's okay. Like, it's okay. A lot of us have been there. A lot of it has to do with, some of it has to do with trauma. Some of it has to do with upbringing. Some of it, maybe you just wanted to have fun, and that's okay too. There's just no reason to carry that weight, and we all deserve to have that burden lifted. And so, yeah, that all brings me to where I am today.
Oh my gosh. Well, there's just so much that you said that I resonate so strongly with. The first thing I want to say is I am just so grateful that you have this community. I see such a need of it in the the work that I do, but also in my friendships. Sexual experience for women, I feel like is such a complicated thing that doesn't have to be. It's such a natural thing. Hearing the fact that you grew up somewhere where education was so limited, yet when you're going to see healthcare providers, you're shamed for your experience. Like it's just, you just can't win. I've been very open with my promiscuity. Mine really was tied to shame and things at a very, very young age with boys and men. And to fill kind of that hole from my trauma background. So sex really did become a very secretive, shameful experience for so much of my life that I, like you, felt like I could never tell anybody. And that just created just like a cycle. It's like the more secrets I held, the more secrets I had. And it made sex a really hard thing for me. Even today in a healthy marriage, it's something that I still struggle with because now coming from a loving relationship and in a place where it's trust and it's not performative, trying to get these people to like me. I still have kind of this freeze reaction sometimes because there's like a weird dichotomy between finally being in control and then sometimes that's shutting me down, and not wanting to be too sexual because I'm in control in this situation. And in my friends too, I feel like there's such a misconception about pleasure. Like for me, I didn't even know that sex was supposed to feel good until well into my 20s. I really thought it was something we did for men. I've had a similar experience with so many women in my life where I've bought their first vibrator at 40 years old because they've always thought that masturbation was shameful. I'm just curious, once you've started opening up your story and building this community, what are some of the lessons you've wanted to share with women, but then also lessons you've seen come from that community to help each other? Because I feel like the resources in our world aren't always going to provide this. What are some things we can teach each other?
Yeah, I love that. Something you shared really hit home in that sometimes you kind of freeze during intimacy. And I think that's so common because, especially if there's trauma related to it, or if you're told it's supposed to be a certain way, or you're supposed to be a certain way, and all the things, you can get into that freeze, flight, fawn. I'm going
Yeah.
to mess them up, but
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yes. 100%.
Bitters, yeah, fight or flight, but then now we know there's more than fight or flight.
Yeah.
There's freeze and fawn, and I think there might be one other one, maybe two. But yeah, it's really common, and it's great that you have a loving partner, and we all should have loving partners that you can communicate with because you can talk to them about, hey, this is going on with me. It's something I want to work on. It has nothing to do with you. You're great. But would you be open to trying some things out to help me be more present when we're together and when we're intimate? Like lighting a candle, or can we start with massage oil? Or if I feel like I'm not able to communicate, but I kind of will give you this certain sign, or I'll tug on my ear to signal either maybe we need to stop or we need to kind of do a quick check-in before we continue. So there's just so many different ways you can work with your partner and find like what works for you and to work through that and be more connected and be more present. I have struggled for a long time with disassociation. I still struggle with it. I was talking to my therapist the other day and she was like, do you feel? I'm like, it's a good question. Do I feel?
Yeah, that's so true. I relate to that too. So sometimes a kind of a numbness.
Yeah, until it is like a wave that everything hits you at once.
So
We were talking about this the other day, but I think finding ways to, like when you do, it's almost as if like I've had panic attacks, but where you're like having to try to like slow yourself down and connect with what's here to bring you back to the present, that grounding, bringing those kind of things into intimacy really can help with those different trauma responses that could be going on. And making sure that you're communicating with your partner before you're intimate, because sometimes when we're in that state, it's really hard to communicate our needs and what we want because we're like, oh, I've never been able to do this before. This is scary. I can tell them to move this direction or that direction. I remember the first time I had a partner ask me, what do you like? What do I like? What do you mean? What do you like?
That's right. Totally. Yes. My listeners know I'm an open book. I share all of my stories because I just think that's so important for all of us to learn from each other. And I think also to realize that whatever your situation is does not make you abnormal, does not make you have to feel shame for what your experience is. And for me, this topic, even with my husband, I think people would be surprised at how we have a relationship that people talk about as such a great couple. You talk about everything. There's clearly so much trust there. You guys are such a great team, but this topic has been one of the hardest ones. It's hard to verbalize. We've been now together 11 years, and it's taken us almost until recently to really be able to honor what our individual experiences are through our words. And so I appreciate you helping us talk about this because I feel like you make it so natural. So thank you for continuing to share and just thinking of the community that you've established and these women that you're talking to, aside from kind of the tips with just sex in general, but just the idea of shame. What are some thoughts on helping people feel less alone in their shame to get to the point where they might be able to verbalize, at least to one of their most trusted people?
I would say I've been doing a lot of therapy. Therapy is very hard to me because I don't feel, well, I do feel, but not, it's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
one of
yeah.
those things where I go there, what do we talk about? Because I'll be like, okay, I was numb all week. Like, what's there to dive into? But I would say the biggest thing is like working with a therapist, finding
Yeah.
tools that work for you, because and have like something that you feel safe with to share. Because one of the things in like healing is acknowledgement that whatever it is that you're holding on to that's causing shame, acknowledging that that happened and being able to share it with someone that acknowledges your truth and just is there to acknowledge you, and that's it. Now, in sharing your truth with someone, if it's a sexual trauma or really any trauma, in therapy, you can do whatever you want to talk about. That is the place to get into it all, right? When you're talking with friends or family or whoever, it's important to not dig into the very specific details of that. So kind of think of news headline kind of sharing, because we don't want to re-traumatize ourselves. We don't want to get other people's secondary trauma. And if you have, don't be hard on yourself. You didn't know. And this is just for, in the future going forward, that, kind of news headline kind of thing. And just being able to share that and have people acknowledge it and say, yes. And then too, sharing it with people that have also had those experiences and they say, yeah, me too. It makes you feel like, oh, I'm not alone. And my so I have built this community, but I would say really the biggest breakthrough that I had was when I went to, it's called the Sapria retreat. It's for women who were sexually abused or assaulted that were 18 years or younger. And it's completely free. It's 4 days. All you have to do is pay for your travel to get there. And you are fully taken care of. Every minute of that retreat is intentional. And it was the safest I had ever felt. And it is not just like a retreat where you do have yoga and you do have drums and you do have support groups and all of that, but it's a lot of education. And so they taught about how trauma impacts your brain. And so that was one of the first kind of lessons that we had. And I saw this list of kind of like self-sabotage. We think a lot about that, but I have a lot of self-sabotage with my finances, with my sexual behaviors, with, all these different things. And I was like going, check, check, check. Oh my God, this all makes sense. I didn't realize that this one thing branched out and hit all these other areas of my life. And so that was just eye-opening for me. But then part of it too was we had that acknowledgement in a circle where we would just share, hey, this happened. This is why I'm here at this retreat. And part of why I was there, I felt like I don't deserve to be here. My experience happened when I was like 14. And I would do all the thing of like being like, oh, was it my fault? Should I really even be here? Like all these different things. And I have just to remind myself, if my niece shared this, I would say, this is a problem. This was not, you did not deserve for that to happen. You were too young for that. And so
I love that tip, but thinking of your younger self as somebody else that you love. I'm thinking of the children in your life now and thinking of yourself at that age. Like, there's something about now looking back and seeing somebody that was the age when these things happened to us, to me is so loving. It just helps give our younger selves a compassion we weren't able to give when we were young.
It does. It does. It does really help. And I still kind of struggle with that. And I have to keep coming back to thinking that, like, what would I say to a loved one if they were in this situation? But in that group, we learned other people were older. They were young teens and teenagers. And so that kind of made me feel, oh, I'm not the only one that's been here, that is struggling, that feels super messy. And so that was just eye-opening for me, that acknowledgement and that community of like other people have had, it's sad, but other people have had those experiences. And then two, so many of the women in my community, everything shared in my inbox is confidential. And a lot of people have come to me and opened up about their mental health struggles. And a lot of them also have had sexual traumas. All of that stuff is related. I'm not a therapist. I don't know intensely about the brain, but I do know from that Superior retreat, we can feel what's called the neuroplasticity in our brain.
That's right.
So there's hope. There is hope. And
yeah, so I am so excited to learn more about this retreat and get it as a resource to share as a link with this episode. One of the things I thought as you were sharing about the retreat, I've found that those kind of spaces, and talking about the current impacts, with the nervous system and how it's showing up in our self-sabotage adult life, sometimes is a lot easier to share and talk about. So it's kind of like an ease in, because when you find out, wow, the things that you're experiencing as a result of that childhood trauma, you're not alone in that. And then as you start to learn about that and start to heal that, then it starts to become, for me at least, a safer feeling than to be able to talk about the actual things, if needed, maybe with a therapist or, a trusted person. So the retreat really sounds amazing.
Yeah, it truly is. There's no like religious component to it there's nothing asked of you.
Yes.
It's amazing.
That's very cool. You talk a lot about the power of body curiosity, through things like lingerie, solo rituals, I love boudoir, selfies. What are some of your favorite rituals to help women reconnect with their bodies in a non-performative way?
Yeah. So one thing that's super simple for me is fragrances. So fragrances can evoke like emotions. And so if you make that fragrance spritz on your body, that body spray, lotion, body oil, whatever it may be, make it part of like a ritual where you're saying something positive to yourself. I'm grateful for my body. I'm grateful for my arms. I'm blessed that I have this belly that keeps me nourished. Saying those positive things. I'm thankful for these thighs that help me move. So just saying things to yourself that are positive and having when you spritz that fragrance on, be associated with that does amazing things for yourself and for connecting with your
I heard that before. I love that. Like, for me, scents are so powerful from a memory perspective. So to tie a scent specifically to your love of your own body, like that just sounds like a really cool ritual.
Yeah. And it helps with that kind of switch of like seeing yourself differently. Yeah. I would say that's something super simple that has helped me a lot. And shout out to my former therapist. I've seen many different therapists, but a sex therapist I saw, she actually suggested that. And yeah, it's been amazing.
Oh, that's a really good. It's funny you said my next question was going to be about that switch, which you mentioned. I love how you say that, that confidence is not a light switch and that it's a relationship. In your own life, how do you show up on days when you don't feel very sexy or confident?
So I would say I just kind of allow myself to just sometimes have those days where I'm in my pajamas, like for most of the day and lounging around on the TV. And I just allow myself to just like have those moments and not feel bad about it because we all deserve rest. And I would say so for instance, I mentioned earlier that like I had a big ego hit with my job loss in November and that really like hit my confidence too. I didn't feel so great about myself. And I allowed myself to just be for a few days until I kind of hit like, all right, we got to make a plan. We got to figure out like what's next. And so I think just giving myself the space to just be and to accept that some days I'm going to feel more confident than others. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with feeling bummed out that you lost your job and that, there's nothing wrong with that. And so I would just say for me, it's not like I'm trying to force myself to feel really good about myself when all that's happening, right? I want to try to work towards coming out of that. But in that moment, I just kind of accept it, kind of do what I need to do to take care of myself. And then when I'm coming out of it, okay, like now let's talk about what have I done that I feel good about in the workforce? What have I done for myself lately that I can feel good about? And just taking those little steps and then also like trying new things. So with the boudoir shoots, for instance, I've done several of those. Every time I do one, someone reaches out. I'm like, oh my gosh, how did you do that? I would never be able to feel comfortable doing that. And I would say if you're one of those people that's saying that, go sign up to do one today. Find someone you would feel comfortable with. Reach out to me if you need some recommendations. I know people across the US that do that I know are wonderful at what they do with boudoir and making people feel safe. But that was one thing that too, like, and sometimes, like, I had a car accident in 2022. It's completely changed how my body looks. Also had a lot of weight gain. All these things have changed. My body looks totally different than it's looked even 5 years ago. And doing a boudoir shoot now versus when I had done it in my early 20s, a very different experience. But it made me feel better about existing in the body that I'm in. And so doing those things and like wearing sexy lingerie, not even if it's for someone else, just for yourself, that in itself is empowering. And yeah, I love boudoir shoots. I think everyone should do one. Like looking at the photos and like seeing yourself looking sexy, you're like, that's me. It's you. Always been there.
I just love that. We've talked about the importance of partner communication in the bedroom. Just as women, as individuals, how do you, just some tips on how to help people find their own pleasure path? Because I think that a lot of times, obviously communicating with your partner is great, but if you don't even know your own pleasure path, then it's really hard to communicate those wants and needs.
Yeah. So everyone should masturbate, period. I mean, unless you're not a sexual person and that's not something you don't have any desire for sex, then that's totally fine. But if you are someone who is sexual in any capacity and likes having partnered sex, you should be masturbating. And whatever that looks like for you. I'm not here to say you got to do it a certain way. It doesn't matter.
But I think one thing to point out is there's different ways. And I think, because I would say anybody listening that has never masturbated, and as I've said, I've had quite a few women in my life, well into their 40s. Was their first vibrator and first time ever discovering kind of a self-induced orgasm. But if you've never tried, or if you've tried and not orgasmed, there are different methods and different types of vibrators and different types of orgasms. So you just continue to explore it and don't give up on it if that's something that your body's craving and you are that kind of sexual person.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong if you have never done it, because I was that person,
of course,
who had all these different partners and had never had an orgasm and was like, I enjoy it. I'm like, that should be good enough, right? I didn't know that there was anything more that I was missing. And I didn't discover that until I started discovering my own body and self-pleasure. And so I just think that that's just so important. And yeah, there's so many ways so many different types of toys. But I would say just because of statistics, 80% it's even seen some higher numbers, but there's, depends on the study, right? But at least 80% has been pretty consistent of numbers I've seen of people with vulvas need extra stimulation to reach orgasm. So that could be clitoral stimulation, which is oftentimes what that looks like. Sometimes it could be anal stimulation as well. So I would say getting a clitoral vibrator is a great place to start. There is like that 20% of people who are able to easily penetrate from internal stimulation. If you are one of those people, we're proud for you, but a lot of us aren't.
Right. And you're not the majority. Right. So, yeah. I think that's important too. But I think a lot of people don't have orgasm through intercourse and then just assume they can't orgasm, which is so not true.
Right. I mean, they say there is like a percentage of people who are not able to, but I often wonder if that's even accurate.
I think they haven't found the right way.
Because there's so many
the right
different
for
types of
them.
orgasms. There's nipple orgasms,
Yes.
blended, G, like
Right.
anal. It's just there's so many different
Right.
ways. It's like just gonna find
Try that all, and I know you're a pure romance. I don't know if you're still on pure romance route, but I feel like if for any listeners that have never been to a pure romance party, I feel like they're just such a fun girls' night, and I am just such a fan. So I feel like just give a shout out. Tell us a little bit about a pure romance party. If you don't think.
So I got started with Pure Romance 3 years ago. I was a customer in my 20s. I was like, that would be such a cool like job to do, but I never even actually went to like a Pure Romance party or a sex toy party until I became a rep 3 years ago. But it is so much fun. So like you get your friends together and basically you get like in-home entertainment where you get to touch all the different vibrators. Nobody's actually like using the products like in the home. You're taking them back home and using them there. But you get to like smell all the scent. You get to taste the different lubricants. And it feels a lot safer because you're just with your friends instead of going into, I know some people are comfortable going into sex shops, but there are a lot of us women that feel kind of we still hold on to that shame, right? We still kind of feel weird going into the store if we're in a small town like I'm from. You're worried you're going to see like someone you know, and then they're going to tell everybody your business, right? It's just a good way to have fun with your friends and laugh a lot, so much that you might pee a little. And then you do get to shop, but you don't have to, which is kind of a fun way to learn about toys, ask questions that maybe you're uncomfortable asking, and yeah, this is a lot of fun.
Oh my gosh, so fun. I love making light of sex. And I can't imagine with the shame I had in my past that I would have ever gotten to a space where I could be with a group of women and so openly joke about sex and laugh about our stories and everything. And there's something about that that just normalizes it. It's just part of a human experience. And I feel like that, I don't know, something about the community aspect of pure romance, I feel like it helps then lead into it becoming a more regular topic that's not weird to talk about as a friend group.
I really like it. And it's kind of fun because you get to be like, oh, if you're talking to your friends, have you ever been to one of those parties? And they usually know exactly what you're talking about. And they're like, yeah, it's fun to go. And then sometimes they'll be surprised at who ends up coming, like your preacher's wife might want to show up.
Right.
So,
yeah. So I was talking about kind of community. I know I referenced your community a couple times, but let's give a shout out to your Bitchin Babes. I just love that name. Could you just share a little bit more about what the community is and how did it come to be? Just give us a little background on that.
Yeah, of course. About 4 years ago now, I started this group and it's kind of evolved over time. At first, it was kind of just like my pure romance group, but then over the last year, I'm like, I really want to change it to where it's more about the women that are there versus like the products. It's called Bitchin Babes, a safe place for sexuality and self-confidence. It is a Facebook group for self-care, sex care, intimacy, lingerie. Sometimes people will show their like lingerie pics and we get to hype each other up. Sometimes people will post anonymously or as yourself. Sometimes people will post anonymously their questions. Someone, had asked, how do I feel more comfortable being on top? And so many great advice that people like chimed in on tips. It's just really a place for people to ask their questions, for us to hype each other up, for people not to feel like embarrassed or judged about it. Yeah, I have a lot of guides in the group with like tips on like different lubricants and finding the right lubricant for like the type of experience that you want. We also did an event in, I can't remember exactly when, but we did an event where it was a Boudoir challenge, and I have all that in the guides for people to do the challenge. Like now that it's over, but you can still do the challenge, where it basically helped you to take your own boudoir photos at home. One of the days I even had one of my boudoir photographer friends, she did a live and she actually showed you different poses and like tips for taking good photos at home. I even had a list of different prompts that you could like photo prompts to kind of, if you're like, okay, I put my lingerie, what do I do now? To help you with different poses, like playing with your hair and different things like that. So it's just a really fun place and where I share a lot of my best stuff. And I have an email group or email. I'm lately, because I've been in that messy stage, I haven't been as active online, I will say, but every Monday I'm sending a newsletter, and I call it like a weekly love note to try to just kind of give some encouragement and encouraging you to check in with your body and taking care of yourself. And then the group is kind of just a place for everybody to connect, ask questions, and yeah.
Awesome. I plan on joining. I feel like this sounds
Yay.
exciting. So I'm excited to check it out and get part of the email group. It's just a great and very needed type of service and community that so many of us women really could benefit from. So I'm loving the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, these next few questions are a segment I call Rapid Reel. They're just some questions where you just answer what comes to mind. So, the first one is, what's a word that comes to mind when you hear the word sensuality? Or phrase. It doesn't have to be a word, but what do you think of when you hear the word sensuality?
I think of, to me, what comes to mind is like caresses and something so slow moving. But the first word that came to mind is connection to yourself
Mm.
and to embodiment of the way like your body and yeah.
Is there something that you used to be ashamed of that you now celebrate?
Oh, that's a really tough one. I would say like myself. I used to be really ashamed of myself, and now I try to celebrate myself in any and every way possible. Yeah, I really used to feel like I was just like a disappointment and not worthy and all of those things. And so I just really try to be proud of myself.
Oh, I love that. I feel like this next question kind of it's a play off of that, I think, because to me, you embody self-love. I know it's still a journey and you've felt messy. In the messy community, we talk about when you unapologetically love yourself is really when you are able to tell your story. And so for you to be able to share so openly, I feel like you've done the work to be in that place to love yourself and that shines through. And I'm just curious, on your journey, what do you think were some of the steps you've talked about, those moments of shame? What's something that comes to mind that was so important to help you get to that self-love space?
I mean, I've said it before, but therapy was the biggest thing. And, having the right therapist, because I've seen a lot of therapists that weren't the right therapist for me. So that was a big piece of that. I've read a lot of self-help books.
There's so many good ones, and they really are helpful for many of us.
The Body is Now one I read recently. So good.
Oh, so good.
The workbook, I haven't finished the workbook, but I got into like page 2 and like had all of these like epiphanies. Definitely recommend that a lot.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So I mean, really the biggest thing has been therapy. And then just kind of once. So you've got the different people are in different like circles like around you, right? You've got people you trust with everything. You've got people that maybe you only trust with some certain things. And maybe you've kind of got like acquaintances like at work where you're not like sharing all of your business. And
Yeah.
I think that starting with that really safe space, sharing a little bit like over time, and then the more like you kind of start sharing and like when you feel comfortable and like speaking your truth, the safer like you feel and like the less power it holds over you.
Oh, yeah. So true. That's one that we talk a lot about on the messy community. And so many of us, our fear was that when you started telling those stories, people would run. And the opposite happens. It really just builds connection and it kind of pass it on because then other people feel empowered and that you're a safe place to share their stories. So I just
Right.
love that. But is there a song that makes you feel powerful, sexy, confident? Your go-to when you're getting ready for a night out or something?
So I love if I wanted to feel like super sensual and sexy,
Yeah.
VXX artist. So that's always a really good one if I'm trying to
All
feel like
right.
sexy and connected. I would say if I'm going out, lately I've been really into Chaperone. And
Oh,
so I'm like
yes.
just feeling kind of like
Oh,
vibes and like, so Pink Pony Club probably is on the top of that list.
yeah, so good. Well, I want to go hang out with you. I feel like that we would have a blast. I think we have a lot in common. That sounds great. So the last question is just if you feel comfortable answering this, thinking of your pure romance groups, is there a toy that's most popular or that you recommend to women that are maybe kind of new to masturbating and trying to figure out their bodies?
Yeah. So one that I suggest everyone has like in their treasure trove of toys or newly found single shoebox, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
It's called Opening Act. And
Okay.
so I can get the link to that for the show notes, but I would grab it and show it. I guess
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
are listening. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it has an ergonomical, I have trouble with that word,
Yeah.
handle. So the reason I like it is because I am a larger bodied woman. And so some of those little tiny bullets,
Yeah.
they don't work great for me.
Yeah. For
You
sure.
can't find your right placement, or you got to move things around to find where you need to go. And so I like that this one is ergonomical. It's got a really thick round end. And so it's easy to put it wherever you want to put it and see what feels good. There's 30 different settings. It's just a great beginner toy and
Oh,
to just to have for the nightstand for anyone really. Yeah. So that would be my top
so
choice for beginners. And then my top choice all around. So that would be my first one, but all around like would be it's called Main Attraction.
mm,
G spot. It's got clitoral simulation. It's a dual action. So what that means is it
yeah.
can go internally and simulate externally too.
Yeah.
And it fits the vagina like a glove. It's amazing.
And I love they're named perfectly. I feel like starting with the opening act and then going to the main event sounds like a good night. Yeah.
Yeah. Delicious.
And I feel like your descriptions made me want to have an episode where just my community, we all come with our favorite toy and we just describe it. You know, like I feel
Oh, I
like
love that.
so many good ones. Yeah. And we would find they're all different. We all have
Yeah.
different preferences. So I'm going to have one final question for you. But before I get there, if you could just let our listeners know how to connect with you and your work. And then if there's anything else that you wanted to add that I may not have asked you yet.
Yeah, the best way to connect with me is on Facebook. You can add me as a friend, send me a message. Hey, heard you on the podcast. Or just follow me if you don't feel comfortable to do that yet. That's totally fine. That's really the best place to like where I'm posting the most. And then my Facebook group, love to see folks in there, the Bitchin Babes. And then my email group. So lately I have been most active with my email audience and sending those love notes each week. You can sign up for and see out everything that I offer at lovecheyrob.com. That's LOVECHEYROB. Basically, my first and last name shortened. And you can get everything there, my email list. You can shop Pure Romance. You can join the Facebook group, whatever floats your boat.
Yes.
Or rock your bed. You can get that there. And the only thing I would say that maybe we didn't talk about that I think is just super important is earlier we were talking about how like feeling uncomfortable and like naming our desires and how it was really awkward at first, when someone had asked me like, what do you like? And I am a big fan of yes, no, maybe list. There's a lot of different options out there that you can get. I do have one that I've made myself that you can get on my website. And what a yes, no, maybe list is, it's kind of like you think of like a stoplight system of, do I like anal? Yes, no, maybe so. Do I like external stimulation? Am I comfortable with the vibrator in the bed? Am I comfortable with you masturbating while I'm not? And just all of these different things. And some of those things you might be like, hell yeah. Some of you be like, ooh, I don't know. It's not for me. And that's okay. And some things you might be like, I think I would like that, but only in with these parameters. Okay, that's a maybe.
Yes.
And so I love this list because what you can do is as a single person, you can print it out, fill it out, see what you like. When you have your next partner that asks you, what do you like? You already know, and you already know what things, hey, I tried this, but I want to try it. You already know. You can answer that question. If you're partnered and you're having trouble with those conversations, you each print it out. It's a fun date night activity. You print one out, you fill it out separately, you come back together. Think if you got a Venn diagram, seeing where you have the overlap, where do you have yeses? If someone has a no, we're not allowed to ask questions about that. We move on to the next one. It's a no. So no means no. If it's a maybe, okay, why is it a maybe? Let's talk through that. But mostly you want to see where the yeses align, and that's where you've got things that are added to your pleasure menu. So yeah, I made one myself that you can get on my website as well. but you also can, you can search those and find one online. I highly recommend the yes, no, maybe list.
Oh, that sounds great. I think I have my next date night idea for my husband and I. What a way to make it fun. Back to talking about the pure romance parties and having fun with your friends. I feel like also just in your own bedroom with your own partner or future partners and just finding ways to make light of these things and make them a little bit more, not silly, but you know what I mean? Just kind of lighten them up a little bit, I
Yeah.
feel like that'd be fun. Over a glass of wine. I'm excited to check out the list of things that we haven't thought about. All right, boy.
Fill it out.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yep. And I'll do that when I put my order in for the main event.
Ooh.
Yeah. The last thing we always close the show with, there might be listeners right now that find themselves in their messy middle, in their rock bottom moment, and curious from your perspective when you've been in those moments, what advice do you wish would have come sooner?
Yeah. Oh, goodness. There's so many instances where I can think of that. And I think that everyone's situation is different. So I've never really had like a huge support system. I have my parents, and if I'm asking them for help, things are really bad. But I would say that I wish I would have asked for help sooner when I've been in those moments and kind of felt like I was just alone and just in this rut and in this dark place that I felt like I couldn't get out of. Because, people will probably surprise you. I also think that I wish I've gotten on antidepressants a lot sooner. So talk to your doctor and see what options might be good for you. But for me, my brain needs that. Otherwise, I'm just in bed all the time and I can't get out and do anything. And so I think just like listening to myself and then asking for support sooner and yeah, those would be the two biggest things, I think.
Fantastic. Well, Cheyenne, I had so much fun with you. Thank you for joining us on the show. Love to have you back sometime. And to those are awesome. That'd be great. And just to everybody listening, thanks for continuing to support Becoming is Messy. If anything stood out to you in this episode, please share. Our community needs it. So please share with the people in your life. Reach out if you have any questions, subscribe, like, do all the things. Until then, everybody stay messy. Look forward to next time. Thank you. Before we wrap today, I want to invite you to be part of the Becoming is Messy community. Subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss a single episode. And if there's anything that resonates with you, please leave a review. Your feedback means the world to me, and it helps other people find this community. Follow me on social media. I'd love to hear your ideas for future topics, your questions, and stories from your own messy moments. And if you're feeling inspired, check out the Becoming is Messy shop, where you can grab a mug, a t-shirt, or something else that reminds you to embrace your messy magic every single day. A huge thank you to the incredible Wolves and Sheep for providing the music for Becoming is Messy. Check them out on your favorite music streaming platform. As we close out today's episode, remember this: messy is just another word for growing. So keep showing up, keep laughing, and keep making beautifully awkward progress. Until next time, stay messy, my friends.